All right, good evening once again. Thank you very much for joining us today. Lovely, lovely Friday evening. The way this week's run these days, it's another Friday. Thank God it's Friday. Hope you had a wonderful week and hope you are having a great day as well today. A conversation we had a while back, and we're responding to some claims made by, apparently it's actually a young person, but these days, in my experience, and I think you're going to agree with me, that often the things you hear young people from a certain part of Nigeria say is not very different from what you hear the elders say as well. For instance, yesterday we listened to some things, excuse me, yeah, listening to some things by what's this man's name? Peter Doche. And of course, while we were able to identify the good stuff, like I like to do, it's important to find something good, But then you can still tell that there's a particular narrative that has become entrenched in that part of the country. Now, like I always say, we have these sessions not because we want to dwell on a particular ethnicity or whatever. It's just that certain claims are being made. And if nobody debunks those things, and I mean, we're all on social media, we're on the internet, right? And you have digital footprint. So when people go on social media or use AI or whatever, the information they get is based on what has been provided. Regardless of how smart AI is, sometimes, and I do it a lot, you want to look for something on AI, you have to almost like force prod using your prompt to get the exact thing from, and then when you now say, oh, that's true, you are actually right. You now tell, okay, let me give you an example. There are situations, for instance, where I would say something like, okay, I won't even go into details. Say I ask a question about some controversial topic in Nigerian history, and then I will just tell you something cool. You now have to, of course, because it's not part of the preferred narrative or the go-to narrative, right? So you have to now say, but if you read this, you will see this. Then I'll be like, oh, that's true. Now I understand where you're coming from. And then if you read this and read this and read, by the time you're now quoting, the AI will now begin to essentially find the information that it would not have gotten unless you had prompted it that way. I'm saying that to say that most people don't do anything like prompting deeply like that. They just go and ask one question, and what they see is what has been said, is the popular narrative for the most part. And I say that to say that if we do not respond to some of these things and, at least find time to explain the backstory, then we'll be left with one narrative, and it could be damaging, not just, to us, but also to our children. And a lot of us have young people coming up asking questions now. Your children probably are asking questions, and you want to be able to tell them the truth. And this is what I always say, you tell them the truth, but of course we do it with respect and with love and all of those things. But love does not mean that we should not share the truth, okay? So that's the reason for this conversation. So in case you're one of those people who come here and say things like, why are you always talking about these people? We are responding to certain things, okay? And if you're not going to stop talking trash, then don't cry when people also respond to what you're saying. Interestingly, we're not responding the way they're saying whatever they're saying, because normally you would say something, then somebody would say their own. So it's like your word against theirs, but I don't think that's the best way to go about it. If a person makes a claim, rather than set up camera and respond and say, this is what I'm saying against you, I think it's better to go through documents. It might be tedious, it might be a lot of work, but I think it's worth it. We go through documents, read all the books that we can within the time frame we have in order to actually understand what happened, and then we'll find the answer, and then we can now run with the answer. So that's what this is all about. So if it comes out like he's always talking about a particular group, it's because that group doesn't stop talking nonsense about others and just making things up as they go along. I say all of this to explain to you that this is an important thing to do. Having said that, let me welcome folks on Facebook and on YouTube. Thank you very much for joining us. It took us a while to connect with your platform because we had some technical issues, but I'm glad you're here right now. Okay, lovely to have you here. Where were we? The title, Why the Ibos Returned After the War. Now, let me read the full thing. While the Ibos returned, there's a subtitle I don't want to miss out. So give me a second, let me find it. I hope you like the songs you listened to earlier. They're quite nice. Why the Ibos Returned After the War, Dismantling the Myth of Patriotism versus Resource Scarcity. All right, so that's what we're doing today, okay? We're trying to answer a question, and we're doing that because somebody had said certain things that you're going to get to listen to. But like we always do, we're going to read the description of the article that we wrote when we put the video out, and that gives an idea what the whole thing is about, and then we will listen to the video together. All right, okay. So let's get into it. Please give me a second. I'm having a little issue with the description. So this is not going to be a description, it's an article, and it's very long. So let me ask before I start. Everything I want to read is also in the video. So let me ask you, do you want me to read the article, or we should just jump right into the video or into the clip since you're not watching? Whatever you say in the comment section. So okay, let me put it this way. If you want me to read, say yes. Whatever you say, I'll just follow. But everything I want to read is already in the video, and I know that I've already kept you waiting, particularly folks on TikTok. So should I read? Okay, somebody say clip. Okay, so say kaka we are because log bongo ta fe gbo. Eyo fe kawe ni. Akiomakin. All right. Please, in the comment section, just write something. I just want to make sure we're working with what we have. Because left to me, I'm going to read this thing. Oh, wait, there's a shorter version. Yes, read. Yes, read. Yes, read. Okay, there are many more people want me to read. So let's read. It's going to be long, but I have strength. Titan also wants me to read. Okay, let's do this. Why the Ibos Returned After the War, Dismantling the Myth of Patriotism versus Resource Scarcity. A young Igbo man recently pushed a narrative online claiming that if the Yoruba people had experienced the tragic massacres that the Igbos experienced in the north in 1966, they would never have returned to the north after the war. The commentator framed the eventual post-war return of the eastern population as a definitive badge of honor, asserting that an extensive geographical spread of the Igbo across the nation reflects a naturally superior pan-Nigerian identity. This interpretation crumbles under a close evaluation of verified historical events and socioeconomic realities. Emotional rhetoric cannot override documented structural history, which clearly demonstrates that Igbo migrants did not occur in a geographical vacuum. While it is true that the Igbos endured horrible things, including killings in the north and a brutal war, that is not where the story began. The historical timeline confirms that the horrific events of 1966 were triggered by a specific catalyst. On January 15 of that year, on January 15 of that year, a group consisting primarily of Igbo military officers organized and executed a bloody coup d'etat that selectively eliminated political and military leaders from every single region except the East. The fatalities included Prime Minister Sir Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Northern Premier Sir Ahmadu Bello alongside his wife Afsat, and Western Premier Chief Samuel Ladoke Akintola. The Federal Finance Minister Chief Festus Okotiebo was also assassinated. The military hierarchy suffered immense asymmetrical losses during the assault. Senior officers from the West, including Brigadier Samuel Ademulegun, alongside his 8-month pregnant wife Latifa, and Colonel Rauchoda Inde were murdered. The Northern region lost its finest command structure, including Brigadier Zakaria Maimalari, Colonel Kerr Mohammed, Lieutenant Colonel Abogo Lagema, and Lieutenant Colonel James Pam. Conversely, Lieutenant Colonel Arthur Negbe stood as the sole Igbo officer killed during the entire operation. Additional casualties of the coup included personnel such as Sergeant Daramola Oyegoke, who was executed on the spot by Major Chukwuma Nzogu for refusing to assassinate the Sardauna, alongside Ahmed Ben Musa, Zarumi Sardauna, Ahmed Pategi, Police Constable Yohana Gakawa, Lance Corporal Musa Nimzo, Police Constable Akpan Antuka, Police Constable Agai Lai, and Philip Lewande. Following this violent disruption, a major psychological escalation occurred as sections of the Igbo population spent 4 months openly celebrating the outcomes of the coup and the killings. This manifest taunting included brandishing weapons, displaying mocking posters, and playing derogatory music across northern motor terminals and public offices. 6. The crisis escalated on July 29 when northern military officers launched a counter-coup, leading to the death of numerous Igbo officers. This development sparked immediate violent reprisal attacks within the eastern region, resulting in the death of thousands of northern residents across Enugu, Umuahia, Port Harcourt, Oboloafo, and other locations. When reports of the eastern massacres reached the north via Radio Cotonou and regional Kaduna broadcast, a devastating wave of counter-violence erupted. While original administrative records from the eastern region initially documented approximately 7,000 casualties, subsequent political maneuvers dramatically altered the narrative. Archival research by historian John Desenjo reveals that Ojukwu began playing an irresponsible numbers game, artificially inflating the documented 7,000 deaths 4 times until the numbers went as high as 50,000 during the 1969 Ahira Declaration to gain international sympathy. The federal government under General Yakubu Gowon exhausted every diplomatic avenue to avert total war. A series of rigorous diplomatic inventions followed to avert full-scale hostilities. This included the historic Aburi Accord sessions on January 4 and 5, 1967, and the subsequent promulgation of Decree 8 on March 17, which granted the East 98% of the Aburi demands and was subsequently rejected by Odumegwu Ojukwu. British High Commissioner Sir Francis Cumming Bruce and United States Ambassador Herbert Matthews personally visited Enugu to counsel restraint. Furthermore, Chief Obafemi Awolowo led a dedicated National Conciliation Committee delegation to Enugu on May 6 and 7, 1967, making a final urgent appeal against secession. Chukwuemeka Odumegwu Ojukwu rejected these concessions, chose to declare secession on May 30, 1967, and launched a conflict that his administration was fundamentally unprepared to sustain. This detailed sequence is important in order to understand all that was done to avert the disaster that the Ibos had to go through. While we show empathy to those who suffered, we must also make it clear that the Yoruba people would never find themselves in this specific historical predicament due to a completely different evolutionary and political journey. This historical variance is not a matter of I'll tell that again. This historical variance is not a matter of inherent superiority. It is a reflection of centuries spent building highly sophisticated, centralized empires and kingdoms. This political heritage engenders a deep understanding of statecraft, strategic negotiations, structural concessions, and balance of power, which the Ibos clearly lack. The cultural framework of the Yoruba prevents the sacrifice of an entire population on the altar of a singular leader's ego. Having said that, let us now answer the question why the Ibos returned to different parts of Nigeria after the war. The post-war return of Igbo citizens to various parts of Nigeria had absolutely nothing to do with abstract patriotism or love for the Federation. The mass migration was a mandatory requirement for basic economic survival. The Igbo enclave has faced severe chronic resource scarcity and land hunger for centuries. Historical documentation from 1866 reveals this structural reality long before the war. When Bishop Samuel Ajayi Crowther led the Christian Missionary Society to Onitsha in 1857, his official administrative reports detailed a population facing severe seasonal starvation and clothing scarcity. Quote, "We found the people in a state of idleness, scantily and filthily clothed, and in a state bordering upon starvation, especially between the cessation of the old and the ripeness of the new crops. The old crops were barely sufficient to supply their scanty wants for 9 months of the year. The remaining 3 months was a time of death and scarcity. That's from Bishop Sam Ajayi Crowther. A charge is delivered on the banks of the Niger River in West Africa. That was in 1866. The introduction, I'll continue with what he wrote in the book, right? The introduction of cassava and corn by missionary agents and advanced agricultural training in yam production provided a baseline layout for food security. However, as the population in the East became the most densely populated zone in Nigeria, land hunger intensified. The available land mass lacked uniform fertility, and the traditional inheritance tenure system to move outward. Furthermore, the rigid social stratification of the Owu and Osuka systems actively denied these secular and sacred slaves basic political and economic rights. Igbokwe, in Ibos 25 years after Biafra, confirms that these marginalized groups migrated en masse to escape these oppressive internal conditions, utilizing British colonial infrastructure to seek livelihoods elsewhere. He went on to add, quote, "In fact, colonial activity, although itself generally degrading and dehumanizing, offered them the opportunity to escape inhuman conditions under which they lived," end of quote. What all this reveals is that the Igbo people had to migrate, and they have the British to thank for the lifeline provided to explore parts other than their pre-independence and in the First Republic were born outside Igbo land. For instance, both Nnamdi Azikiwe and Odumegwu Ojukwu were born in Zungeru in the Northern Protectorate. Contrary to the notion of patriotism, the Igbos migrate in order to survive. They migrate due to scarcity back at home and the opportunities elsewhere, which is why it is preposterous when in trying to make themselves happy, they say things like, we developed Lagos, we developed Kano, we developed Meduguri, and so on. Funny how the development never happens in their enclave. Still answering the question, why did the Igbos return after the war? The economic dependence of the wartime enclave was heavily structured around external resources. Documentation shows that the region relied on importing high-protein food funded by palm oil exports, of which 64% was produced by non-Igbos in the minority areas, alongside financial remittances sent home by Igbo migrants working across Nigeria. When the leadership ordered all Easterners to return home in 1966, these vital financial lifelines were completely severed. In an interview published in the Telegraph on October 4, 1970, Ojukwu explicitly admitted to interviewer Frederick Forsyth that he did not plan adequately for hunger. One second, please. Will I say they don't come touch am from some part of Nigeria, but we'll go read them. Give me a second, I'll find it. I'll take that part again. In an interview published in the Telegraph on October 4, 1970, Ojukwu explicitly admitted to interviewer Frederick Forsyth that, quote, he did not plan adequately for hunger, end of quote. Consequently, as soon as the conflict ended, the Igbo population naturally flooded back into the southwest and north to secure immediate livelihood opportunities. Immediate economic migration across national borders became the sole viable option for individual survival. This movement is a standard economic reality seen worldwide, but it becomes a major point of friction when returning groups attempt to rewrite history. The claim that migrant communities developed economic powerhouses like Lagos is a historical fiction. Yoruba land has always been an established bastion of economic prosperity. Prosperity existed in these parts long before colonial integration. Those who were welcomed back into these prosperous host communities owe a debt of magnitude. I'll tell that again. Give me a second, please. Those who were welcomed back into these prosperous host communities owe a debt of immense gratitude to the indigenous populations who accommodated them, abandoning the ridiculous narrative of a superior pan-Nigerian identity as the reason for their return, or making the equally ridiculous claim that the Yoruba would not have returned, as though returning to other people's spaces due to scarcity back at home is something to be proud of. That was why the Ibos returned after the war. I'm going to play the clip now. Please take a listen. Take a listen to this. It's very short.
If it were the Euro,
take a listen to this. It's very short.
If it were the Yorubas that were butchered and massacred and unalived in the northern Nigeria, they would never have returned the way our Biafran brothers and sisters, our Igbo people, returned to northern Nigeria.
You know, when you make videos like this, right, and then people respond, then begin to cry and say, why are you talking about us? Something's happening in your state. Let me tell you, I care about Nigeria. Go and talk about your state. Number one, people have to understand why. See, this is why I say, shall we say we went to school? Can you man do me? One of the things that actually show you as like a thinking person is the ability to ask why. So the conversation shouldn't be that Ibos returned to the north after the war. It should be why. And the reason is the same thing as why many of the Igbo leaders pre-independence and in the First Republic were born outside Igbo land. It's scarcity. If you read the Williams Commission report of 1958, the commission was the poverty report in 1958. Here's a line from that report when they were talking about the Igbo plateau. They said the land was too small to support the people. Right? The soil, that's actually the word they used. The soil was too small. It's a small, you know what? Let's read, shall we? And then we can go. I guess I should play the video one more time so that we'll have context, okay? So here's the thing. You can't say things and tell people not to respond. That's my own. You have a right to speak, we also have rights to respond. So take a listen one more time, please.
If it were the Yorubas that were butchered and massacred and unalived in the northern Nigeria, they would never have returned the way our Biafran brothers and sisters, our Igbo people.
So here's the first thing you should ask. Why did they have to leave in the first place? I was listening to one of what you call an Igbo thinker say that to the Ibos, Nigerian history began in 1967. That's a very disingenuous thing to say. You've got to go back. The reason you left was because people reacted to what you did. The reaction was terrible, to be clear, but what happened from your people was equally terrible. But I don't want to go into it because we talked about it when we discussed the coup and all those things. But here's the point. When you say that, I want to find you that document. Let me just read to you very quickly. When you say that, oh, why did, if Yoruba, it's not even up to Yoruba people, because Yoruba people will not do what you did. Do you know what these guys did? You go everywhere throwing your weight around in a land that is far from home. You assume that because we have a place called Nigeria, you have a right everywhere. Even me, I know, as a Yoruba man, if I go to Borno, send me a message. I'm saying it because I remember, because I mentioned Borno, I remembered. It was like, if you come to Maiduguri, you would not be a stranger. And I'm like, I'm glad you're the one saying it. It's better for the owner of the land to, since you are stupid. When you go to a person's land and you begin to just move anyhow, you had killed their leaders and not killed your... Well, you have to start this story from the beginning. You get the point? So number one, I said, let me just quickly go back. The reason you went back was the reason most of the leaders from Igbo land in the First Republic and before independence, most of them were born outside Igbo land. There's a reason that happened. We'll talk about that in a bit. The other reason is that, the other question is, why did you even go there in the first place? Now, we'll come to that. Second reason is what happened that led to you leaving there in the first place. And what happened was that there was a coup, January 1566. It was an Igbo coup. You can get angry with that, I don't care. It was an Igbo coup. It was an ethnic coup Although there are people there that were used who had revolutionary thoughts, people like Nzogu, people like Ademoega, but all in all, it was an ethnic coup that was designed to do one of two things: either to have an Igbo prime minister or to have an Igbo head of state. And when they suggested the prime minister on the 15th, was a Saturday, 15th of January 62, 15th of January 1966, they suggested Kingsley Mbadiwe. That, you know, Mbadiwe, the one Ozumba. They suggested that it was going to be the prime minister. People said no, and rightly so, because it was from NCNC and they were not the majority party. They're not the senior they're not the senior partner in the alliance, right? And when that did not work, they went to part two, which was to have an Igbo head of state. If they had succeeded with, see what they did, if they had succeeded with Mbadiwe, would have had an Igbo president, right? Nnamdi Azikiwe, an Igbo Senate president, Nwafor Rizu, Igbo Prime Minister, Kingsley Mbadiwe, and then Igbo GOC, Aguiyi Rossi, because I Igbo Lawa. But when they didn't get, they had two already, they needed that third one, the prime minister. When that one did not work, they just made the GOC the head of state so that they don't even need a president or they just made everything and had one person. Now, that was not even what caused people to kill, to start chasing Igbos out of the north. After the event that included killing leaders of the north, killing leaders of the west and midwest, and touching nobody from the east, the Igbos then decided to gloat, just like many of you are doing right now, and to be telling the people that they are the ones that can teach them sense. And they did that for 4 months. Outside they tried though. They waited 4 months before they struck. May 29, 1966. But that was not when people actually moved back. It was terrible what happened, but they settled it. By the beginning of June, everything calmed down. And then the West lost the premier. We lost our premier, Samuel Akintola. The Midwest lost the Minister of Finance, Festus Okotiebo. Now, the North lost 4 senior officers, Malari, Lagema, Pam, and Kerr Mohammed. The West lost 2 senior officers, Rafshoda Inde, Samademulegum. The East lost nothing. The senior officers were cooling and enjoying themselves, and were the ones that were used. Number one, they were the ones that organized the coup. The other ones were the ones that scuttled the coup. So it was Olegban. All right. And then you have all these things where many people were killed. And I have documents from the from the British archives talking about the conversation they had. No, Fadji did not die in January. That was in July. The conversations they had. Sorry, I was responding to someone in the comment section. But I'm going to talk about it. To others, so that it wouldn't look like it was just to Igbo people. They even killed a woman who was 8 months pregnant. Latifa Ademulegun. That was Brigadier Samuel Ademulegun's wife. They also killed the Stonehouse wife, Afsat. They killed a lot of people. But somehow, what they were talking about in terms of corruption and everything, somehow it did not apply to Igbo people. But people did not, by the way, the killings that came out, and I said this after we watched that Surviving Biafra thing, it was a mistake they made. They said that the Northerners killed Igbos because Igbos had the coup. That was not why. And I know I've done this before, but I think it's important for me to read it. 1 second. So there are 2 books that will help, there are about 3 books actually that will help us understand what I'm about to say. And I could say it, but I did say it yesterday without reading anything, so I might as well. All right. So 3 books that will help us understand. I'll read 2 of the 3. That's enough. Number 1 is The Tragedy of Victory by Gordon Labi Sama. Second one is Beckon to Serve by Shehu Shagari. The third one is The Origins of the Nigerian Civil War by Nnamdi Azikiwe. But these ones are here now, so let me just read them. So this is Brigadier. By the way, the Surviving Biafra thing they did was very, very watered down version of the truth. I'm not saying there's no truth in it, but if you read this book, the man who wrote the book was also the one who spoke in that documentary, and it was his son and his grandson that made the documentary. I think it was, I don't know why, it didn't sound like the one who wrote the book, for obvious reasons. And we talked about it couple of days ago. So let's get into this. It says here, a man shouted from the crowd, and okay, let me go back just a bit. Abubakar is Lieutenant Colonel, right, who worked with Alabi Sama in Okobo. Abubakar also arranged for the chiefs and elders of the town to meet me, and the whole town was there. It was like a carnival. He had already told them that the 3MCDO chief of staff, who was the war commander, was coming on visit. The whole town trooped out. After my address and thanking the people for their support and all, I asked if there were questions. Suddenly, a man shouted from the crowd and was conspicuous from the way he limped. He asked if he could speak, and we all answered yes in unison. He asked, if you people are so nice, why did you kill so many of us in the north? I lost my wife and 2 children. By the way, this is about May. This is May. We're still in May. We'll talk about July and August later. Okay, say, if you people are so nice, why did you kill so many of us in the north? I lost my wife and 2 children, and I only managed to escape. I could not bury them, for I had to run away. But here you are talking about one Nigeria and looking after us. We had thought that you would arrive here and kill all of us, and that was what the Biafrans told us also. So why did you kill us in the north? This happened in Okobo. For about a minute, I did not know what to say, as I was not part of those who killed in the north. I barely escaped being killed myself, and the man was crying. There was pin-drop silence. Then Abubakar asked if he could answer the man. I quickly agreed, because at that point I could not think of a convincing and satisfactory answer to the man's question. Abubakar's reply was very brilliant. He said, I am sorry that the situation happened at all. It could have been avoided. Even the war itself could have been avoided. The first coup killed all our Hausa leaders and officers. I had a Hausa man. We had no leaders and no one to trust. We had no one to talk to us about what was going on in the country. Since we were leaderless, everyone shed. I wanted to speak, but people did not let me, as they started applauding in appreciation of Abubakar's speech. Even the man who asked the question was clapping his hands. The short speech, delivered in heavy Hausa accent, was wonderful, especially when he said, since we were leaderless, everyone was to himself. There was anarchy. The logic was, you slapped me first, then in anger, I broke your head, and you want to complain to the elders. Yes, we were both guilty, but that was not enough reason to break up the country. The crowd cheered the more. That was from The Tragedy of Victory by Godwin Alabi Sama. Second book. This one is Beckon to Serve by Sheil Shagari. I actually really like this book because it does have a lot of good information. But so where's the page? Boy. Umbo. Good, found it. So let's get into this one. But before I get into it, perhaps I should go back just a bit to give us the base of what happened in May. Okay, so we already talked about the fact that people were killed. And then other things happened, e.g. Decree 34 of May 24, 1966, that was promulgated by Rossi, based on the advice of one man. It was a one-man committee. The man's name is Francis Owokedi. All right, he came up with the idea of unification. But like I've always said that if you really think about it, although it was Iransi who promulgated that decree, unification was not an Iransi idea. It was actually an Igbo idea. And see, you may not like what I'm saying, but trust me, I don't hate anybody. It's just a fact. 1 second. When you say this, Ibos tell everybody to read. Why we struck? Can I read why we struck? I'll read something from there before we go back. Started in 1951. I mean, it's been on before then, but 51, they began to push it using NCNC. And people were against the idea, so as soon as they got Iransi in power, they made sure he did it. Let me read something to you from Adewale Ademoyiga's book, Why We Struck. It says here, Iransi, let me go back just a bit. Another important point was that we removed the politicians because we were convinced that they were evil. We did not favor any side. This is Adeola Ademoyiga. Another important point was that we removed the politicians because we were convinced that they were evil. We did not favor any side. We did not seek to wear the garb of any political party. This we knew for sure. Ironsi, on the other hand, surrounded himself with a particular tribe and chose the political policies of a particular party. That tribe was the Ibos and the party was the NCNC. He could not see that this kind of situation called for the balancing of ideas, principles, and personalities. That's from why we struck. He surrounded himself with one particular tribe and chose the political policies of a particular party. And so happened that the particular tribe had influenced the political policies of that particular party, having hijacked NCNC. I'm talking about the Ibos. Now, they came up with Decree 34 to centralize everything, unify in the name of unity. All this stupid unity idea. It's not unity, it's unitary. But they'll call it unity. For example, one of the things he did. Stay with me, please. This is what Ironsi said. He said this on 31st March. Then we're going to go to what happened in May. The few Northerners on the various study groups also felt that they were being manipulated, while Northern civil servants in general became increasingly edgy over the trend of affairs. Their fears that the regime had irreversibly committed itself to unitary government, regardless of whatever the various commissions recommended, were confirmed by Major General Ironsi's budget broadcast of 31st March. That was in 66. He boldly asserted, take a listen to this, please pay attention. I am convinced that the bulk of our people want a united Nigeria, and they want in future one government and not a multitude of governments. That was the first sign that there was going to be a unitary government. In other words, when it says one government, it means that there is nothing like regional government, right? Or autonomous governments, essentially. What you say basically is that all the power will reside in the center, which is what is happening. We still have that problem today, Abi. That was what Ironsi gave to us. So he says that. So he started by using the word united, which is why I say when people talk about unity in Nigeria, be very careful. For the most part, they're just trying to steal something. Many people don't care about unity. They care about their own interest, right? But they're going to tell you about unity, especially if you're Yoruba. It's not, they don't care. So he said, I am convinced that the bulk of our people want a united Nigeria and that they want in future one government and not a multitude of governments. On the latter view, back to Shagari now, on the latter view, Ironsi was mistaken. Henceforth, Northern criticism of the regime became more strident, pervasive, and uncompromising. Let me go just a bit. In May, Ironsi indicated that the jobs, listen to this, Ironsi indicated that the jobs and land anywhere in the country would be available to any Nigerian. There was, in my view, much to commend in such a policy, but given the climate of inter-ethnic mistrust, coupled with the extensive Igbo penetration of Northern entrepreneurial and vocational life, it raised a specter in the eyes of average Northerners of greater Igbo competition for jobs and land in the North. Such apprehension was compounded by northerly influx since January of Eastern school leavers in search of jobs or opportunities for higher education. In other words, after the coup of January 66, a lot of Easterners who were leaving secondary school moved up to the North to take advantage of opportunities in the North. If you read, just before done by Kole Omotosho, read the conversation that happened among the governors of the regions and Ironsi on the matter of the unification decree, right? You will find the same Northern agitation or fear about the domination of Ibos, of their own resources and of their own opportunities. But once you say all the lands belong to everybody, all the house belong to everybody, oh, there's no regional Kinikon, there's no regional civil service, everybody is now inside one civil service. And remember that by 1964, the Ibos had dominated the Nigerian civil service. If Onitsha and put him in the North, you can just feel everywhere, which was what happened with the Federal Civil Service. And we've done a session here before where 147 of just a bit over 200 people in the Nigerian Railway Corporation were Ibos. 70% of Nigerian Ports Authority, Igbo. About 70% of Nigerian Airways, Igbo. 29 senior lecturers in Yaba Tech, 21 of them were Ibos, right? The same thing was replicated in every federal. They would just centralize everything in order to appropriate everything in the name of unity. By the way, it was Martin Dent who talked about the fact that they had a plan, also had a plan to also transfer kings across Nigeria. Go figure. Anyway, so the political temperature in the north was brought to a head on 24 May when Ironsi announced Decree number 33 and 34 of 1966 in the national broadcast. Decree 33, which proscribed all political parties and numerous ethnic associations, was straightforward enough, but Decree number 34 was a very different kettle of fish. It purportedly united. Let me take it again. Decree 34 was a very different kettle of fish. It purportedly unified the country by abrogating the federal framework, replaced the regions with groups of provinces, and unified the federal and regional public services. All right? So that happened. And then to cap it up, you had the issue with the salary and date of appointment of officers and so on and so forth. Then the Drum Magazine edition, June 1966 edition of Drum Magazine, that was published in May, where they did something that you wouldn't expect any sensible person to do. Let me read what they did to you. Meanwhile, there occurred another provocation which deeply wounded Northern and in particular Muslim sensibilities. The June 1966 edition of Drum, a highly popular magazine, was out on sale. Few Nelson Ota, who was also an Igbo. Even more distasteful was another article on the slain Northern Premier entitled Sir Modu rose in his shrouds and spoke from the dead, written by Cos Idakpo, another Igbo journalist. The picture carried a phony photograph of Sir Amodu's robed body placed on a bier before Idakpo and with a crowd watching. This showed Sir Amodu allegedly confessing his foolish misdeeds and asking Idakpo for forgiveness. These were the things that led to what happened in May. But that's not all. I'll read one more to you. And it's important to say this, if the Northerners did what they did because of what Ibos did, they would not have had to wait until May. If it was based on the killings of their leaders, they would have killed people very, very quickly. So all of this, of course, led to the wahala that happened. We're not going to go into the details. And then the military head of state, Ironsi, asked the Sultan to visit him. Yeah, Ironsi's task was not helped by the behavior of Igbo residents in the north. This was before what happened in Mayo. This had been happening since January. Let me go back just a bit. In the meantime, another issue cropped up on my return to Sokoto. Major General Ironsi invited the Sultan, Sir Abubakar III, to Lagos for consultation. The Sultan consulted his traditional cabinet. We reasoned that acceptance of the invitation might be misconstrued as a tacit support for Ironsi's increasingly disagreeable conduct of public affairs. Accordingly, we advised the Sultan to convey an explanation disobliging the request. A man of white sympathies, the Sultan rejected our conclusion, recalling that he had once visited Lagos February 1945 at the instance of Sir Arthur Richards, the British colonial governor. So he was even more inclined to accept the same invitation from a Nigerian head of state. It was a day-long visit on 12 March 1966, during which the Sultan delivered a reassuring speech to troops, many of them Northerners. Major General Ironsi was happy to have the Sultan in Lagos, for he was trying to stem the gathering tide of Northern discontent. This was in March. But Ironsi's task was not helped by the behavior of Igbo residents in the north. Since his assuming power, many of them had been loudly proclaiming the regime to be theirs, and even making a virtue of the January coup killings. This confirms what we read in the other book. This attitude quickly spread from offices and public institutions to places like model terminals and markets. Some Igbo shopkeepers even took to displaying large-size photographs which depicted Major Nzogu standing beside the body of the slain Sir Ahmadu Bello, the former Northern Premier. Igbo people would draw the attention of Northerners to the photographs and say of Nzogu, Chinemaganinko, which means in Hausa, he's the one who can knock sense into you. Some Igbo also took to public playing of a gramophone record called Machine Gun, whose celebratory lyrics of the January killings were interspersed with the sound of gunshots. Such unwarranted provocations naturally exacerbated the unease between Northerners. 1966. Gaskia Tafikwabo ran a trenchant editorial calling for the insolent behavior of the Igbo residing in the north to be curbed. While they were doing all of these things, Ironsi was talking about national unity. So he had 3 national groups. Before they even Woke had come up with the inflation decree, and then the other things I mentioned earlier then happened. And then what happened was people got angry May 29 and began to kill Ibos. By July, there was a counter coup, which was of course Northern. It is called Northern counter coup in history. And interestingly, the North doesn't have a problem with us calling it Northern coup, but the Igbo coup, they're always crying about it, but it was an Igbo coup. Anyway, there's a Northern counter coup in July, and the Northern officers decided to retaliate for what happened in January, and they killed a lot of Igbo officers. Ibadan, Abeokuta. No, it wasn't Abeokuta first. It was Abeokuta, then Ibadan, then to the north. And while killing, they also killed the head of state, Ironsi, and they killed the governor of the western provinces, the western group of provinces. That's Adekunle Fajri. That was in July. Now, it was terrible what happened. At some point, they began to also kill civilians, Igbo people. Some of them rushed back home, talk about the terrible things happening in the north. As soon as they got the news back home, they then began to kill Northerners in the east. Now, Nigerian history doesn't mention that for some weird reason, because we want to maintain a sole victim narrative. That's not what happened. Ibos killed Northerners, not few, not even 20, 50, 100, 10, 500 or 7, in the thousands, right? They killed a lot of them in Owerri, in Umuahia, in Port Harcourt, in Oboloafo, right? While that was happening, some of them escaped to tell their story in the north. Many of them were killed. Some of them have been in the east for decades, right? But they were killed regardless. A particular train was stopped. The train was carrying about 2,000 people, 2,000 Northerners back to the north. And Igbo soldiers stopped the train and asked all the adult males to stand up. They killed all of them and threw their bodies into the Imo River. That also happened, all right? And it's terrible stuff on both sides, but it's important to mention these things as per timeline. Anyway, there are some foreigners around the Bolo who were traveling to the north. They saw what happened, and somehow the news got to Radio Cotonou. Radio Cotonou broadcast it, and they received transmission or signals in Kaduna, who then rebroadcast it in English and in Hausa. And then the Northerners just went on rampage and began to kill massively. So when you look at what happened, it's quite a lot of things happened before what happened. Although we're not going to read anything else, hopefully, on that matter. Now, the second question I asked: why did the Igbos return to the north immediately after the war? It's not because they have one Nigeria in mind. It's because the east is not. I'm trying to look for a mild word to use. Not the east, the southeast, because the east had other people. But the southeast, Igbo land, to be specific, was not conducive for living. I want to say something, but I don't want to say it. You know, anytime I want to say something that is too heavy, I just try to read it so that people don't say I said it. I mean, I'm saying it, but I'm not saying it. You get the point? Oh boy, the book is there, but it's far away. I'll just tell you the book, so if you want it, you can read it yourself. Oh, I found it. But the book is called Ibos 25 Years After the War. It's written by Bukwe. The reason Ibos returned immediately after was because it was better for them to be everywhere but home. This is not a jab, by the way. It is what it is, like they say. It is what it is. Mumbo, I want to read the book because what they said in that book is a bit somehow. If I go and say it now, oh, he's making things up. He hates us. I don't hate anybody. I love you. I love you with the love of the Lord. I can see all over you the glory of the Lord. Ibos 25 years after Biafra. So, number one, the reason why they had to leave was that there was no land. There's something called land hunger, land scarcity. There was no land. So here's the thing. Think about it for a second, right? Very quickly. The entire southeast, Anambra, Abia, Imo, Enugu, Ebonyi, those 5 states are literally about the size of Oyo State. Oyo State is about 28,000 plus square kilometers. The entire south is about 29,000. So that's the size of Oyo State. So now imagine all the Igbo people packed into that place. Now, the other day, the governor of Anambra State said over 50% of the indigenous of that state live outside Anambra State. Over, not 50, over 50%. Could be 60, could be 55. But more than 50% of these people live outside their state. And even that place is still choked. Have you been to Anambra before? Have you been to Onitsha or Oka or Bulafo? I've been to those places. The place choke. Very, very choke. So and that's why you see people, buying decking and building because the land is not as much. So a lot of people, the place is very small. That's one. Now think about the time when people depended on agriculture. Most of the land is not arable. I hope I'm soft. But we're going to make sure that we don't. By the way, if you're just joining us, I'm responding to a particular video. Please let me play that video again because some people might be wondering. So you understand that I'm not just, looking for, just trying to put anybody down. Just that people just make these stupid videos and just insult people, and they don't expect to be responded to or to get any response for their rubbish. But you will get responded to. But before I continue, I'm going to tell you more about this land thing. Just quickly listen to the guy who was talking about. If you're Bible, take a listen, please.
If it were the Yorubas that were butchered and massacred and unalived in the northern Nigeria, they would never have returned the way our Biafran brothers and sisters, our Igbo people, returned to northern Nigeria.
So you've heard it. So you have the context now, Abi. Glad you do. Now let's read a bit. So there was land hunger, particularly around Onitsha, Oka, Okigwe, and Olu. There's a dearth of fertile land. So normally, Gonko Sile, land no plenty like that. But then of the land that is available, much of it was not fertile. So there was dearth of fertile land as in areas like Newi. Then there was a rising cost of farming as in Okuta. This is from Professor Nkena Zemiro. He then said, the Igbo primitive communalist mode of production under patriarchal domination was accompanied by a low level of production, under development of productive forces, and the increasing pauperization of the younger sons. That's just a big word for making them poorer, consumption to production. And since production was based on the cultivation of land, low production and pauperization were worst in the areas of poor soil. Here, the rate of migration was highest. The reason people traveled was because there was, number one, very small land, all right? There was low production, and there was pauperization. When you hear the word pauperization, what it means basically is this: when a father dies, which is why people always fight over land in that place, when people pass on, most times the house or the land will go to the first son. So if you are the younger son, you are OYO. That means that you have been pauperized based on the structure of. I'm not saying the culture is good or bad. It's just what it is. Okay. We're having some issues with. I hope YouTube is good. But yeah, okay. This is not about whether it's good or bad. It's just what it is, right? So the land is not. There's land hunger, then there's death of fertile land, and then there's pauperization of the younger ones. The reason for that is because the older ones get the land, get the stuff. Nobody really cares about the younger ones, right? And because of that, the younger ones had to move. So the idea of moving is not based on patriotism, it's based on necessity. You have to go or else the person will die of hunger. Moreover, the soil is comparatively poor because it is highly leached and acidic. A large number of Ibos could not but migrate. The reason he went back to the north immediately after the war is because a large number of Ibos could not but migrate. If you read Majiparam Listener, October 20, 1960, she said that the Ibos are the force for unity. They're going to be a force for unity in Nigeria because they need unity. They need it. Like, unity is a necessity. That's why people say, let's unite, let's unite. You know, unite for what? It's because unity gives. That's why people talk about I bought land. You know, as a Yoruba person, people say I bought land, I bought all your land. They're like, there's land. Choluwanile. The earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. You just bought half a plot. You can't let people rest. The real issue behind this, let's unite, it's not unity because of purpose. It's unity based on scarcity. And Majiparam got it very correctly when she said they need unity. Anthony Naro said the same thing in Crisis and Conflict in Nigeria by H.M. Kurt Green, August 12, 1968. He said that they need to be all around Nigeria because they've known Nigeria in this century as their country. This is the only place they've known as their country. So they have to move around and take advantage. It's more, and there's nothing wrong with it, to be clear. I'm not saying it's wrong to take advantage of things, but don't make it look like the Yoruba people will not go there because of whatever reason. The reason you went back was because you had no other option, or else you just die at home. Where were we? So it says here that in some places the density is more than 1,000 persons to a square mile. Moreover, the soil is comparatively poor because it is highly leached and acidic. A large number of Ibos could not but migrate. They had to. And so in 1952, about 9,000 Ibos were residents living in the 11 main urban areas of the north. Have you thought about it for a second that many of the Igbo leaders before independence, right, were not born in Igbo land? Azikwe was born in Zungeru, in present-day Niger State. Ojukwu himself was born in Zungeru, in present-day Niger State. Right? Chukwuma was born in Katsina. People were born outside, not because they had to move. Oh, thank you. Thank you for the gift. Thank you very much. They had to move because, again, this is not an insult. It's just a response to the nonsense this clown was saying. Okay, stay with me. By 1952, about 99,000 Igbo residents lived in the 11 main urban areas of the North, West, Midwest, and Lagos. They constituted 8% of the total urban population of these areas of 1.2 million and 51% of the non-indigenous population. In Lagos, Benin, Kano, and Kaduna, they constituted over 30% of the non-indigenous residents. Again, no, it's not 30% of the people, though. In other words, if you have 1,000 non-indigenous people, non-Yoruba people in Lagos, 1,000 of them, out of those 1,300 are Igbo. That's what they're trying to say. They're not saying that 30% of everybody there. It doesn't even get to our place like that until our 1920s, 1930s, which is why I'm always wondering why. Where were we? So it says in Lagos, Benin, Kano, and Kaduna, they considered over 30% of the non-indigenous residents. Therefore, unlike the more materially developed Hausa and Yoruba linguistic people, the Igbos were more compelled to move. The young ones, who were the poorest because of the disadvantages imposed on them by the tenure system, constituted the bulk of the migrants. What is it saying here? A lot of people who had to move out were those who were not the firstborns, because when lands were shared based on inheritance and things like that, it's going to go first to the elders, the older sons, or the eldest one actually. So the younger ones were the poorest because of the disadvantages imposed on them by the tenure system, and they considered the bulk of the migrants. Similarly, the secular and the sacred slaves, Oru and Osu. Now, people said, somebody came to me and said, there's nothing like Oru. So in some parts of Igbo land, they will call it Ohu. It's just dialectal differences. Like it's the same concept. Slave, sacred, as the sacred one, of course, and the secular one, which is Oru or Ohu. Where were we? The secular and sacred slaves, Oru and Osu, respectively, also migrated in large numbers. They constituted the most exploited and downtrodden of Igbo societies and were without social, economic, or political rights. And this is the heavy one. In fact, colonial activity, although itself generally degrading and dehumanizing, offered them the opportunity to escape the inhuman conditions under which they lived. But for the colonialists, people would have had to live under inhuman conditions. If you read the Willings Commission report I mentioned earlier, the description of what that area was like before the British and even afterwards. This is not to say that the people were strong, they were hardworking, good people, great nation, but the land just wasn't right. And maybe if they have worked on it, they would have I'm sure God has deposited something in that land, just like He has put in every part of the world or part of the country. You know, it may not look very cool for agriculture, but I mean, Singapore doesn't have a lot of land for agriculture either anyway. So again, it's not a jab, it's just reality. In other words, you move out because you have to move out. The Yoruba man doesn't have to move out anywhere. Interestingly, it does move out as well, just like he would rather go to the UK or the US. And we have a lot of people in the north, by the way. Right? We have Yoruba communities. They don't talk. I think next week we should do a session on, there's an IFRA paper, right? There's an IFRA paper on indigenous relationship between the north, between Hausa people and Yoruba people. I think we should read that next week. Yoruba people have been in that place. I mean, what am I saying? I was going to say since the 19th century, but we've had a relationship with Hausa for more than 400 years. Ibos just about 100 years. That's why they're saying we are connected. I'm not connected to you, and it's not like I hate you. I just am not connected. The Hausa who I've been dealing with for 400 or 500 years. Then they force me to say we relate, we are related. We just respect ourselves. The point, Sha, is there's another book I'm trying to remember. I want to read another book. I hope I remember. I remember. There's a book, The Nigerian Civil War by John de St. John. I remember. See, let me tell you something. I don't think we have to read this one. I can just tell you because of time. Before the war, the Southeast lacked food, particularly protein-rich food. And this goes back all the way to, we have record from 1866. There was a book that was written by Bishop Samuel Ajayi Crowther. The book is called A Charge Delivered on the Banks of the Niger River. And Ajayi Crowther had gone there in 1857 as a missionary. And they did a lot of work there. They helped, they introduced several things. And I think it's important to also be mentioning these things because people just talk nonsense these days, especially on social media. No, it wasn't. It was 1866. Hold on, please. They moved there in 1857, right? And they introduced cassava. They introduced a better way of planting yam, okay? And then they introduced corn. I think I feel somebody's thoughts like is a lie. Wait, let me read something. I didn't want to read because it's almost 10, but what are friends for? See, some of the decisions that people make, right? That's why I said that since we all claim to be educated and we've gone to school, it's important that we always ask the question, why? To be clear again, there is no perfect ethnicity. Even my own ethnicity, it's not like we have everything that we don't need. We also travel, like just that we don't, we're very selective. But everybody goes where there are opportunities, right? What I don't like is when people try to make it look as if they are more Nigerian than others because they are the ones that move back. You move back because if you don't go, you go hunger. Hunger go wire you. That's why you went. So this book was published in 1866. I'm going to find you a page and quickly read something to you from this book. So issue of food and sustainability or sustenance has always been an issue in that place. Of course, it has to do with the land itself, although at the time, the people were not as many as they became by the 1950s, that we're talking about in the report I read earlier. So let me quickly read this to you. Industrious habits have been encouraged. Again, the book is a charge delivered on the banks of the Niger River by Ajayi Crowther. Habits have been encouraged. When we arrived at Onitsha in 1857, we found the people in a state of idleness and with its attendant evils. They were scantily and feebly clothed and in a state bordering upon starvation. This was not the war. The war happened 100 years later. Jesus is Lord. Actually, 110 years later, Jesus is Lord. Jesus is Lord. Wow. Mumbo. Please. Wow. I never thought about it that way. Jesus is Lord. Wow. Let's read. I don't know the population at the time, but I could find out if it's important to you. Just wow. Anyway, Ombo. Industrious habits have been encouraged. When we arrived at Onitsha in 1857, we found the people in a state of idleness and with its attendant evils. They were scantily and filthily clothed and in a state bordering upon starvation, especially between the cessation of the old and the ripeness of the new crops. The old crops were barely sufficient to supply their scanty wants for 9 months of the year. They did not grow more, although the exuberant fertile soil was ready to yield them a 100-fold increase in return. The remaining 3 months was a time of dearth and scarcity, when they had to live upon fruits and other edible plants, the spontaneous produce of the fields as might be found in the bushes anywhere. But since the introduction of the cassava plants, that's cassava plants, into the country by Mr. Taylor and other fruit trees, and the people have been taught to raise a second crop of Indian corn, that's agbado, that's maize, by Mr. John Smart, a scripture reader, and how to grow their yams better by the united example of all the mission agents. They have had enough to eat and to spare. The introduction of the cassava plant into the country is universally acknowledged as one of the greatest temporal blessings brought to them by their zealous minister. The trading establishment has contributed greatly to stimulate them to labor in collecting palm oil for sale, for which they are paid in Manchester goods. And now they are getting into the habit of going about more cleanly and decently apparelled. Now, you have to also understand that Onitsha was the place in Igbo land. In other words, Onitsha people consider themselves to be superior to any other. As a matter of fact, until the 1940s, 1950s, they did not call themselves Igbo. They just said that they were Onitsha, right? They'll call everybody to the East Igbo because of the meaning of Igbo. And once the people are able to see, once you grow and you're able to acknowledge their past, it will not be, nobody can shame you with it. But if I say it right now, it will be like a shame. Like, I'm not trying to do that. No, Osu is a caste system, is a caste. That's, you're discussing caste system. I'm saying the meaning of Igbo Gogon, the word itself has a meaning, and that meaning, once people are able to own it, nobody will be able to, it will not become like an insult. Because if I say it now, it's going to sound like an insult, but it's not an insult. It's just the past. Anyway, they did not call themselves Igbo. I'm looking at the meaning right now. You know, I have a dictionary here. How did this thing open to the page I'm looking for? And I didn't even touch it. English, Igbo, and French Dictionary by the Fathers of the Holy Ghost. Roman Catholic Mission on Onitsha, Southern Nigeria, 1904. That book is here. There's another one as well that was published around the same period, early 20th century. Anyway, the point is, Onitsha is like the superior place, right? So if in Onitsha they're having this issue, now imagine what the problem they'll be having in other, spaces. Anyway, that was 1866. During the war in 1967, something very interesting happened as per food. So food has been an issue for a bit. But during the war, if you read the book I mentioned earlier, The Nigerian Civil War by John de St. John, he mentioned that there's always been scarcity of proteinous food. You know what? I also think it's important to read. Please, the reason I read these things is because if I say it, see what I just read right now, I have to find a way to say it gently. Because if I just say it out, it'll be like he's making it up. Some things are very explosive. So someone says, what's the meaning of Igbo, Prof? One day I will say it. I'm sure I've said it before. I just don't say it in the moment. I have to say it when I'm saying something else. So I'll say it in passing. Like I just said something in passing while I was reading that book. I didn't dwell on those things. It was intentional. Once you come of age, history is history. It's just like coming to me now and saying that you people fought yourselves for many years and everything. You guys were not united. It's history. It doesn't trigger me. Unless you're trying to weaponize it, which would not make any sense because, again, it's history. 1 second. So pay close attention to this so that you understand why Ibos returned. Because the reason they returned is actually because, again, sustenance. They needed to eat. I can't find the page, but I'll tell you the story. As I look for the page, okay, wait. As I look for the page, I'm going to tell you the story. So here's what happened. So there wasn't a lot of protein-rich food in Igbo. Is not International British Organization. You guys made that one up. This name, they've had that word as a name and the meaning before the British got to Nigeria now. This is actually quite weird. Can't find I'll tell you the story. But it's in this book. While I'm talking to you, I will find it. So, John de St. John was talking about how there wasn't protein-rich food in that area. If you wanted fish, you had to go to the rivers area. That's present-day rivers and Bayelsa. That's where you had a lot of fish. That's not to say that there's no fish in Igbo land, though. Of course, there are rivers there. But again, think of the number of people inside that place and the land itself, the size of the land. Koto. So by the time we had independence, everybody was living in Nigeria, you had to get fish from the rivers area. And if you wanted meat within the eastern, if you don't want to go out of the eastern region to get meat, you have to go to the northern part of the eastern region, which is areas like Ogoja. Even today, Obudu. Obudu is very close to the north. I don't know if you've been there. It's actually a very beautiful place. Let me just advertise for free. Hey guys, if you have never visited Obudu Cattle Ranch, please visit. Does the cable car still work? I don't know, but please visit Obudu Cattle Ranch. It's actually quite nice. So that's where you find the cows, right? You don't have all those things within Igbo land. Give me a second. What I'm about to read now, I'll just read it and I'll explain. Nigerian Civil War. Okay, the Nigerian Civil War. We're just answering a question, by the way, just in case you're coming in, just joining us. We are just having a conversation about a person, responding to a person who said, if the Yorubas were the ones, after the war, they will not return, as though Yoruba people have a problem with returning. But that's not what happened. What really happened was that Yoruba people have a place to stay afterwards. They can stay and sustain themselves. But some people need to move, which is okay. So what you do is you appreciate the people who welcomed you back. You don't say, at least I came back. It's because I'm superior. I'm a patriotic Nigerian. That's a lie. I found the page. God bless me. God bless you. In Jesus' name. Amen. All right. Imabino. Talk about the FMB. Good. Wow. Okay. Please just pay attention. It should be worth the stress. Please just give me. I think it's this page. Especially when it's not something that's just made up or something that happened at the time. God is good. Found it. All right, let's quickly read this. Even when the level of feeding and okay, let me just go back just a bit. Okay, good. The Nigerian Civil War by John de St. John. That's what I'm about to read, okay? Starvation, malnutrition, and infant mortality have always had a high incidence throughout Nigeria, the last rising to a phenomenal 50% in some places. But even before the war, one more time, but even before the war began, the situation was deteriorating in the Igbo areas of the east. By far the most densely populated part of the country, only Rwanda, Burundi, and the Nile Valley match it in Africa. It relied traditionally and heavily on imported food, especially high-protein foods. These imports were paid for by, pay attention please, these imports were paid for by the export of palm oil and kernels and by the remittances sent home from the Ibos working outside the East. I'll come back to that. Even then, the level of feeding and protein intake was dangerously low. The troubles of 1966, which created 1.5 million refugees in the East, cut off the valuable remittances and destroyed the precarious balance. The outbreak of fighting eliminated further sources of protein, notably the cattle-raising districts of northeast Biafra, that was the part I mentioned earlier, much of the fish from the riverine areas, and the vital imports of Norwegian stockfish. By the end of 1967, the situation had reached crisis proportions, and the churches in Biafra made their first public appeal for help. The basic needs were in order of priority: protein-rich foods, medicines, and later bulk foods. And then he talked about marasmus and kwashiorkor and so on and so forth. But here's the point I'm trying to make. See, because there was no protein at home and there was not enough food, what they needed to do was to import food. So they had to get the money from two sources. One was from the money that they got from selling palm oil and palm kernels. Let me make it very clear. Much of the palm oil and palm kernel did not come from Igbo areas. If you read the documents from the Addis Ababa conversation, 12 August 1968, by Anthony Anaro, he mentioned that of the 25,000 pounds that was made the previous year from the sale of palm oil and agricultural products, 16,000 pounds came from the minority areas. That's 64%, right? And in some cases, it was higher. In some cases, they got more than 64% from the minority areas. When I say minority areas, I'm talking about Ẹkáàbọ state. I'm using the states now. By the way, I use states that we're using right now, not because states existed back then, but because that's the best way to explain it, right? So Ẹkáàbọ, Cross River, those places in particular, you had a lot of agricultural land there, right? You had more oil and stuff in the rivers area. All right. So much of the oil and everything came from those places, but they needed the money to be able to import the protein, the fish, and whatever into Biafra. The second source of finance to be able to import those things were the remittances from Ibos living outside the eastern region. Just like we do right now, people live abroad, you send money to your family members at home, the same way they were doing back in the day. So here's the problem. Around September of 66, Ojukwu called everybody, in fact, August to September of 66, Ojukwu told everybody to return home. August, not September. August 1966, Ojukwu said everybody should return home. Here's the problem. if you needed the remittances of the people working outside your region to be able to buy protein at home, and you're telling everybody to return home, who will now pay for what they'll be eating when they get home? Which is why in 1970, October 3rd, Telegraph newspaper publication, there was an interview that Frederick Forsyth conducted. Ojukwu said he did not plan well for hunger when he declared the nation. He said it. I read it here 2 days ago. We don't have to read it, do we? If you have to read, just say yes. I'll look for it and read to you. But it's in there, the Telegraph, 3rd October 1970. So the point really is, as soon as the war was over, people could not wait to return to the places they used to get the remittances from. They had to go back. So it's not about nationalism or patriotism or one Nigeria. It's survival. And again, no shame in there. There's no shame. Just don't come around throwing some weight around telling people that if it was you, you will not go back. Why would I go back? Because nothing is chasing me from home now. Like I can drop anything on the ground to germinate, and it's nothing to be prideful about. It's just grace. I'm sure you have certain things I don't have either. Like God blesses everybody based on, Someone says yes. 1 second. I hopefully this will be the last thing I read today. They will continue on Monday, and I'm sorry, I'm going to have to close this session like pretty fast because we have overstayed. Okay, good. So this is from, did I say October 3? Sorry, I made a mistake. It was 4. October 4, 1970, Sunday Telegraph. They asked him this question. The person who interviewed him was Frederick Forsyth. He says, on a purely tactical level, what would you estimate were the mistakes you made? He said, mistakes? I made many. Thank God, by the way, I actually respect him for this particular interview. At least he acknowledged he messed up. Other interviews, he was just acting as if he was the Lord and Savior of whatever. But this one, at least, he acknowledged his mistakes, which is good for growth. So they asked him the question, Frederick Forsyth asked him, on a purely tactical level, what would you estimate were the mistakes you made? Ojukwu responded, mistakes? I made many. Thank God for the gift of hindsight. I think some of my mistakes were based on my identification of targets, political and military, both internal and external. I think these were a bit hazy, and this led to certain hesitations at crucial points. Then he says, I think I declared Biafra late. Probably the best time would have been on the usurpation of power by a military junta in Lagos, which is quite weird because that makes no sense. He's saying that he should have declared Biafra on July 29, 1966. But to be fair, he had been planning to have Biafra since at least June. At least all of that. I think I missed the Lagos. I think I missed Lagos itself as a military objective. I underestimated the effect of foreign exchange on the conflict. I did not realize the full significance of the Suez Canal closure in 1967. And here's this part. I don't think I planned adequately against hunger. I don't think I planned adequately. You didn't even plan against hunger at all. You needed your enemy's food to survive. That's not planning. Which is why I'm telling you, these clowns shouting, we're going to fight the war. The one we listen to the other time. We need the war in Nigeria. Okay. People need to study why their fathers failed. And it applies to all of us. You have to study the mistakes. You have to understand. And that's why when we're discussing Awo Akintola, you see how we discuss it. The mistakes they made, how we find even the mistakes of Awo, the things I could have done, what I could have done, because of course hindsight is 2020. We're not condemning them, but we're trying to understand so we don't repeat those mistakes. You're trying to see how my father could have done this. And when I say father, I'm not saying biological. I'm saying Awo is our father, right? As Yoruba people, Akintola is our father. So Professor Awo is a god. Regardless, the point is you can look at even deities make mistakes apparently, okay, because it's not capital G-O-G. So what could I have done here? What could Guinea have done here? These clowns have never never ask that question. How do I know? Because they only blame the federal government. Oh, it's go on, it's our, is this, is that. They've never really seen what their fathers did wrong, which means that I can assure you, try it a billion times, they'll make the exact same mistakes. Because people didn't do anything wrong. See, Awo is the greatest as far as politics is concerned on this continent. But guess what? He made mistakes. But it doesn't change the fact that he's great. His greatness cannot even be, you can't even touch it. I hate him. I don't care. But he's great. But I can say, I know what? If he were alive, he would be happy that people that came from him are able to see what he would have done better. And they'll say, based on what you have given us, we can see a bit. Because, I mean, it's like what Newton said. When you stand on the shoulders of, those who have gone ahead of you, you're able to see farther. So you still need their shoulders, and they'll be happy to bear you on their shoulders so you could see farther, and they'll be like, oh yeah, you have seen farther now. That's the goal. But if instead of you're not even climbing their shoulders, you are on your knees, lapping up the whatever, in the name of holy, and you are now going everywhere saying it's Ojuku, it's go on, it's everybody but people that got you into trouble. You repeat their mistakes, I can assure you. You don't have to like me. That's the truth. And again, it's not about ethnicity, it's human, it's natural. All of us, let's say you want to start a business now. You have to do some research, right? If people have failed in that business before, you want to know why they failed so that you'll be able to avoid those pitfalls, right? It's commonsensical, right? In our families, if you want to say certain things, you notice, you can look at your dad, right, and say, okay, that's why if you're always blaming your father, you repeat his mistakes. I can assure you. If you're always looking for your father's faults, I had a great father. He had mistakes. Daddy try. What's a mistake? But he's my hero. But it's not like you're looking for a touchlight. Okay, what else did he do wrong? You are recognizing the mistakes so you can fix those mistakes. But if you're always blaming them, you also will repeat the mistakes. Because most likely you will become what you are hating. Because your energy is poured into that thing you're focusing on. All of this to say that Ojukwu himself said he did not plan adequately for hunger. So think about it. If a people didn't have enough at home before the British got to Nigeria, when we see at colonization, after independence, and you now hear that the war is over, what do you think they'll be staying back to do at home? This is why, and I want to say this to all Nigerians, this is why you hear the things like remove state of origin. It's not because the person is more Nigerian than you. It's because the person needs your space. And I'm not saying he's a bad person or he's a good person. I'm just telling you that he is a selfish human being. He doesn't care about you. Especially if you're in the minority ethnicity and you're shouting, remove yourself, you are killing yourself. You are destroying your own self. Because, you see, which is the reason for this nonsense indigenous bill as well. Once you pack enough people from that particular ethnicity into a particular place and they dominate the place, they change everything. You say, oh, we have culture. Who cares about your culture? It's in the constitution. It's not in the constitution now. You want to have a king. Why can't we become the king of your state now? What do you mean? There's no state of origin. State of origin is the only thing, let me put it this way, is the major thing protecting indigenous people in Nigeria. State of origin. Don't touch it. And here's what I've noticed. The people who shout, remove state of origin, let's become indigenous of other people's place, they are fiercely ultra-conservative back at home, even amongst their own ethnicity, within their own ethnic group, forget Nigeria, within their group, from town to town, village to village, clan to clan, very, very conservative. And I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just telling you that people know what they're doing. So if you're a Yoruba person and are joining this chorus of remove state of origin for national identity, you don't know what you're talking about. If you want to have identity or unity or whatever, do it as Yoruba people first. You cannot be looking for a big or touchlight or a big kiri. The evil person is saying, let us have one Nigeria and we're all one. I've asked him several times, can the Ebonyi person do what you're doing in Anambra State? What's his name? The governor of Abia State, Oti. He appointed John Udeagbala as mayor of Aba. Not governor, mayor. Town to town. Nobody say Yoruba. The Abia Indigenous sent a message. You know what they said in that message? I thought it's in the video we posted earlier today. They said Abia State is not a no man's land. Why a no man's land? So you can't even allow another person who has competence. Competence is the word, Abi. Who has competence to become the mayor of another town in the same region. So you have situations where people who build houses from Eboya, the houses are being pulled down in Anambra State. You have situations where indigenous of Imo State are being removed from Abia State civil service. That happened during this man, Okorocha, when he was governor, and Theology was governor of Abia State. You've not found that cohesion in that place. You're looking for Nigerian unity. Again, we know what we're doing. It's not about unity so that we can say, let us work together. We are all, is a lie. The idea really is this. If you know that you don't have enough land where you come from, and land is very important to you for whatever reason, when we have that oneness, which was what Iransi was doing as well, we can now say everything belongs to all of us. Let us all share it. And if you say no, it's because you're a bigot. I hope with these few points of mine, I've been able to explain. I don't even have to tell you why Yoruba people do not have to, will not even do what you did. It's because of abundance. Simple. It's because of abundance. It's not because you are more clinical. It's just abundance. I mean, God bless you. And I'll say this in closing. There is no part of this country that God has not blessed. We may have it. There's something called comparative advantage. There's something I have, you don't have. There's something you have, I don't have. As long as people continue to look at what other people have to judge their own life because they have their better past mentality, they will not make progress. You just be raising children that will be, you can have all the money in this world, but you still be a victim. The mindset is a victim mindset. And it's crazy. Someone says they have coal. That's true. There's coal in Enugu, there's no coal in Yoruba. I don't know whether, if it, they've not found it. I don't think they found it in Yoruba land. But there's coal in Enugu. And that could mean something. That could mean something. Seriously, it could mean something. Could generate electricity using it. They could do many things. I don't have to now envy you based on what you have, I don't have. Thank you very much for listening. So if you are Igbo, God bless you, but don't go around telling people that if you are going to return to Nigeria, it's because you had to come to Nigeria. You need it. If there is a war, also Abiola in 1993, as soon as that thing was over, everybody was back in Lagos. Why? They need unity. Thank you very much for being here. Well, thank you very much for listening to that. That was why the Ibos returned after the war, dismantling the myth of patriotism versus resource scarcity. And like I said, we're responding to a claim made by a young man when he essentially threw shots at Yoruba people, and we've had to endure a lot of these things for many years, for many decades. I said the other day that this thing is not new, right? There was a time when Yoruba people were essentially under attack, and it's more psychological than anything else. To be clear, it's not attack by carrying guns. Although we experienced the arms and ammunition, whatever, in 1966 to 1967 from Ojukwu and his Biafra goons, but particularly psychological attacks. We've had to enjoy it, believe it or not, since 1938. And that's why I'm going to have a session very soon. Perhaps it's going to be a physical event. But I want to talk about, when people ask a question, how did we get here? Right? How did we get here? People make it seem as though this is the first time they're experiencing, well, maybe that's the first time they are experiencing it, but like this is the first time it's happening. It's not. It's not. We did not just get here because of the 2023 elections. That's not how we got here. Anyone who tells you that, oh, it was just the election that caused this thing is not telling you the truth. If you really want to go deep into it, the earliest date you will find, well, that I have found, and I've done a bit of research on that matter, is 1938. 1938, and the person who spearheaded this at the time was Azikiwe, and it went on for 10 years before the Yoruba people responded in 1948. That led to something that's called Lagos Press War of 1948. All this nonsense about we own the land, we couldn't cut the land is not new. All I'm saying is that it's wrong for us to have deja vu when it comes to Nigerian political landscape. It's not too cool. People should evolve and learn and grow. I mean, people make mistakes. That's okay. But what you don't want to do is to be stagnated for life, where you then assume that in order to make yourself feel happy, you've got to have a better past my neighbor mentality on one hand. Number two, you have to find a way to pull other people down, or because you're already down. He who is down needs he doesn't have to fear any fall. So you are already down. You'll find a way to look for a way to pull everybody down and say things like, at least I'm better than this person. So that's the only thing that will make a person sit down and say, if the Yoruba people had faced what they faced, they will not return. Yoruba people could not even face that thing. Yoruba people will not sacrifice the entire race for the ego of one man. And again, it's a product of socialization, it's a product of cultural evolution. If you are a part of a group, I mean, again, someone asked me on YouTube and say, why are you censoring yourself? Because there are certain things that you've got to be careful how you say it. And I know that regardless of how I say it, people will still tell me I'm harsh. Yesterday, somebody said I was too soft. Some people will say I'm harsh. I just like to be in the middle, right? And there are certain cultures that do not have the benefit of politicking, statecraft, or high-level negotiations. We don't understand that concession could actually be a way to show power. People who don't know that you can actually stoop to conquer. There are many people like that, some groups like that in Nigeria, they just don't get it. That stooping so low sometimes does not mean that you're stupid. You were stooping, not stupid. So if you stoop sometimes, you can, like Shakespeare said, you can stoop to conquer. Some people don't get it. And then they say things like they've never been killing court, they needed somebody, your people are doing something. It's a cultural thing. But to be clear, we've got to get to the point where we don't have people just saying things anyhow. But again, if they don't stop saying that, it's okay. Whoever wants to say whatever they want to say, it's okay. But it's important for Yoruba people to understand, history and understand all this context. Again, not because you hate any group, but because you've got to be grounded in the truth, right? And then you don't become an easy prey for those who just want to pick your brains and put propaganda and weaponize empathy, and so you eventually find out that you are surrendering things that you have no business surrendering, all because of ignorance. But I hope that with these conversations we'll be able to transcend that. Let me quickly make this announcement that by 9 p.m. today, you'll be able to access the forms for 2 Summit. 2 Summit, I'm going to talk more about it on Monday, but the forms will be out by 9 p.m. 2 Summit is a series of events. We'll be having monthly, monthly events where we move from online to physical spaces, and we go from colleges or campuses to cities. So essentially campuses and cities. But we're starting with schools. We want to reach out to young people and talk to them about these things, and make intellectual conversations hip and make it fun. So there'll be music, there'll be poetry, there'll be drama, there'll be all that, but there'll be teaching and there'll be questions and answers and things like that. There'll also be Radio Republic game show, which was something we started here last year, where people actually get to answer questions and also win prizes. All right. It will be starting in September, but we're trying to put things together before then. So we have four categories where we're looking for people. Number one, we're looking for volunteers. So if we're hosting in a particular place that's close to you, you could come around and help with whatever, whether it's media or tech or ushering events, whatever it is that you can do. The other one is partners or givers. Those are people who just you believe in what we're doing. We've been doing this for a while, so I'm sure this must mean something to all of us. So you want to support it because you think we're doing something good, which I believe we are. And then there are categories for that. Even within that, that particular category, there are different levels of giving. And then the third one are sponsors, those who actually have businesses. You want to give money, but you also want something in return. So you're able to put your businesses out there and folk get to see. The other one, you may have businesses or not, you just want to support what we're doing, but the sponsorship, you actually want to push a particular brand or a particular product. And then the fourth one are hosts. So those are people who maybe you're in a school, you're in a city, you have facility or whatever, and you want us to come there and have the event. You'll be able to fill that form as well. Then we'll get back to you. Now the forms will be live by 9 p.m. But we'll keep talking about it, and we want to have ample time to prepare. But once we start, it will be every month, from school to school, from city to city. Of course, primarily Southwest, because like I always say, the primary focus is Yoruba, but that doesn't mean they are the only people. We're not the only people we reach out to, because I know that a lot of people listen to what we do. There are people from the South who listen, and I really appreciate it. There are folks from the North who listen, different parts of the North, and it's quite humbling when people reach out, to tell you what they are gaining from the sessions, but it's important to, that charity begins at home. Before you begin to say, I know something that I want to teach the world, maybe you should teach your family members first. So I think that there are things that we need to do as Yoruba people, and if we can do it well, then we can also become a model, and also it becomes a platform to be able to reach out to the larger, country, that's Nigeria, and all of this to help us, number one, appreciate our culture, appreciate our history, be proud of who you are. And this is not about haughtiness. It's just about confidence in who you are, your ethnic identity, in the achievements of your forebears, right? Like I said in the video, in the clip we listened to, they don't have to be perfect for you to be proud of them. And I'm fiercely proud of Yoruba elders, all the way back to Oranfe. Whether it's Oranfe or Dudua or Batala, all the way Ogun or Amiyan, all the way to Awolowo and to my father. Very proud of Yoruba people. We don't do that, and that's not to say that they have made no mistakes. We can even in showing that we're growing, we can even identify the mistakes they made. And I said it in the clip we listened to. I didn't dwell on it because of time. Maybe we'll talk about this some other time. But the truth of the matter is that you can sit down as a child and look at what your dad did wrong without condemning him. But you can learn lessons. If you condemn him and you dwell in it, you might repeat the mistakes. But if you learn lessons, you're not going to repeat the mistakes. And I think that if Papa were alive right now, and I had a meeting with him, and I said, Papa, if you had done this, I'm talking about Awo now, if you had done this in 1959, maybe we would have had a different outcome. I mean, hindsight is 2020 after all. He will consider himself, because we are here, we're where we are today because of what he did, himself and his people, his set, his lieutenants, the folks who worked with him. Whatever they did is the reason we are the way we are today. I mean, think about it. We are all seated here, wherever you are in the world. We come here every day, Mondays to Fridays, every weekday, Mondays to Fridays, and we're reading books. I mean, you link that back to Orunmila, and then you also have to acknowledge our Lord, because without him, the kind of culture that we have for education and reading and studying, we're not going to have it. So it's important to, remember that. So I'm saying that because of that legacy, he would be proud to say, you know what, okay, you guys, you have been able to go farther by, observing the things I could have done better. Now, and you are doing this because of what I've given you, which is education. Now do better. And I think that's where our generation comes in. And we have to have that conversation online and also offline, particularly with young people who are so susceptible to being blackmailed in this Nigerian conversation, and who also sometimes don't understand exactly what heritage they have. So, all right, so please, the forms will be out by 9 p.m. tonight. Please go on Redomi Global. By the way, let me just type it in our comment section, because I noticed that some people found it difficult to find. So please, I'm going to type it. Type and say, I'm going to use Redomi Books here. I won't type by. Let's do it this way. I'll type it on TikTok, and I'll also type it on YouTube and Facebook. So here goes or you can do this, right? You can go to your browser. All right, you don't have to go to Telegram. Just go to your browser, Google Chrome, whichever one you use, and type t.me/Redomi Global. All right, I'm going to type. So that's it on TikTok, right? We'll do it also on YouTube and Facebook. So please just go to t.me/Redomi Global, and by 9 p.m. you'll be able to access the forms, and then whichever one you think you want to be part of, whether you want to volunteer, you want to partner by giving, or you want to sponsor where your products or your services or brand will be publicized, or you want to host the events, whichever one you want to be part of, please feel free to check out the forms from 9 p.m. Also, over time we're gonna have this, put everybody together. So we'll have a meeting, where we get to say some of the things. Like I say, there's some things you can't say online, so we'll be able to gather ourselves. There's a document for this project, okay? This document that I believe will also be of help. And there are a number of things that we're going to be doing, but this is going to be pivotal as far as going offline is concerned. So please join the movement and let's do this together. By the way, this is going to be under Redomi. Everything is Redomi. Redomi is a company on its own, but 2 is going to be a series of events. There will be 2 summits on a monthly basis, and we also have 2 festival on an annual basis, but that will be much later. All right, let me just answer some questions in the comment section before we close the session. Someone says ethno-linguistic regions is the key, not just regional. We need our undead kinsmen back. I mean, that's a different conversation, but we're going to have that conversation some other time. We can't see everything, we can't finish all the things in one day. But thank you for highlighting that. And I also think that these are conversations that we should have off social media. I'll give an example. Last week, right? It's actually exactly 1 week ago. June 12th, there was a conference hosted by Pastor Poju, Oyemade, and Covenant Nation. It's called The Platform. And BRF was there as a speaker. I mean, there were many fantastic speakers there. Victor Ladokun was there, Charles Omole was there, Rajiv Fashola was there. A lot of great guys, and men and women. BRF mentioned something about, questioning the nationhood of Nigeria. And that's not what he said. I'm just using my own words now. Essentially asking that is Nigeria a nation or a country? And he said that a lot of people use those words interchangeably, and he would like to know. Now, I have answered that question a long time ago, and it was actually quite nice to notice that, someone like that is also interrogating that stuff. But he said something that I will address in one of our sessions, in one of our physical sessions when we're talking to young people. What he said was that somebody had quoted, Path to Nigerian Freedom that Papa had written in 1947, was published in 1947. And in that book, Papa had said that, Nigeria is a geographic expression, it's not a nation. But of course, he didn't finish the quote. And one of the things I've noticed and I'm not blaming BRF for this, he was quoting someone else who quoted Papa. But let me just say that one of the things I've noticed when it comes to quoting Awo is that people never finish his sentences or his phrases. They just take one thing and make it look as if that's everything he said. He was talking about identity, right? He said there are no Nigerians the same way you have the French, the English, the Turks, and so on and so forth, because those are ethnic nationalities. All right, these are conversations that we must have, and if we don't have it, we are going nowhere. No matter what, everybody can speak English. We are not going any goddamn where. We are not going anywhere. We've got to have that conversation. And there are tough conversations. For instance, I can say it anywhere. Nigeria is not a nation. That's why the only time I use national is when I'm talking about national anthem, because that's what we've come to call it. On a normal day, I don't think you should use anything national. National Broadcasting Commission, it should be Nigerian Broadcasting Commission. National Population Commission, Nigeria. It should be Nigeria because it's not a nation. And I love the way Yoruba people actually, if you look at the etymology, the interpretation of that word in Yoruba, what it means is actually quite deep. Orile-ede. Èdè wo lẹ fi ń ṣe orílẹ̀ ní Nigeria? Kò sí now. You have no language. As a Nigerian, you have no language. You have no culture. The only things you have, apart from, we're going to have this session, I'm already answering something else. Apart from your national symbols, right? And paraphernalia. So you're talking about your coat of arms, your national anthem, your pledge, our pledge, because I'm also Nigerian. And again, this doesn't mean that I hate Nigeria or I hate the idea of Nigeria. I'm just trying to explain that we have to get to the point where we can properly define what we are doing, or else we are just joking. What you're doing basically is that if you can't define it, you're just going on with the colonial. It's not even colonial, to be fair, because the colonial self, as bad as them be, they still structured it in a particular way. Not the perfect way, to be clear, but at least better than the nonsense that we got in '66. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that apart from your national anthem, national pledge, coat of arms, motto, and all those things, what is our culture? It doesn't exist. There's no Nigerian food. And don't tell me rice. Don't tell me jollof rice. But we've come to adopt it now, Sha. But in reality, much of what you call Nigerian food is actually Yoruba food or Ibibio food or Hausa food. Like, it's ethnic, right? There's no Nigerian wedding. Much of what you call Nigerian wedding is actually Yoruba wedding. And the crazy part is that they Nigerianize Yoruba thing without giving Yoruba credit. And they tell you that for you to say that it's not Nigerian, that you are somehow, you are bigoted. Meanwhile, the same something similar happened in Mexico, where some guy went to take a particular design of a shoe. There was one that was Adidas. I think the other one was Prada. One was in Mexico, the other one was in India. Those people went to court. It is here that we think those things don't matter. They do, because it doesn't take so long before liars and thieves begin to tell you that they won't just appropriate what's yours; they steal it. Ethnic identity is very, very important, and self-preservation is not a sin, but you can do it from a place of love. I don't hate anybody, but you can't be using that against me by stealing from me. These are conversations that we must have as a people. We are many nations in one country, and we are not the first to be like that. The UK is literally like that. If you Google now, I say it often, and I know you must have heard me say it 1,000 times, but please bear with me. It's something we have to understand. It's one thing to say, it's another thing for people to actually get it. If you Google right now, how many nations are in the UK, you will see 4. They don't think it's bad. I don't know why Nigerians and Africans generally that did not even create their own nations. You had no say in the creation of your countries. You did not determine your own borders, but you can't just sit down and say, you know what, wait though. What's this oneness, unity, oneness that we're shouting since the 1950s, 1940s? Does it really make sense? And the answer is that it doesn't make sense. It's one of the most stupid things that some of these skinny fathers did. And then when we now search deeper, we discover that the whole unity idea was not really about the people or about the country, it was about their people, because they needed the unity in order to survive. And I don't think I have to jettison my identity because you want to survive. What's my business with your survival? Especially when you're a very selfish clown who is trying to take everything that belongs to other people in the name of unity. Makes no sense. So yeah, we can open our spaces. Let everybody come. We are all brothers and sisters as human beings. Okay, everybody's fine with me. I'm okay with everybody, but I determine how this space runs because it is mine. If you have a problem with that, you are a thief. That is it. I don't care whether you say constitution, even that's why they were going to change the constitution, put indigenous bill. We said no, and it is forever no. It's not about unity, it's about stealing. May God give everybody understanding. And if you're a Yoruba person, these are the conversations we must have. And one of the reasons I was meditating, did I use that word? Well, that was what I was doing. I was meditating about this two summit thing. And one of the pictures that will come out of this, speaking like a pastor now, but I mean, I can't help it. One of the things that will come out of this event I'll be having is that there'll be young people who are studying computer science and studying law, studying political science, studying education, studying agriculture, studying all kinds of courses in school, studying music, media, whatever. They will grow up with that consciousness. All right. And in the next 2, 3, 5, 10 years, they'll be the ones influencing. I mean, a lot of them are, and even now, some of them who use social media will begin to influence others in a very good way based on, like, they're using intellect, right? So we're going to make academic conversations fun. And they also, I mean, I love the fact that we are here, we're having these sessions, but imagine that our sessions, our physical sessions, we're able to raise 20, 100, 200, 300 minds. Doesn't have to be like my own, but the point is that we think alike and they're able to occupy spaces and use their stuff. Before you know it, you now have a nation of people who are very, very educated. And by so doing, you're literally fulfilling our Lord's vision. Everything connects. I always said that you can't have democracy work in a place where the people are not educated. You don't have to go to school to study political science. I did not study political science or history in school. Interestingly, I should say this before I go. I like to say this. I've not said it here. Have I said it here before? It's actually one of my. I know I'm taking a detour, but I'll get back to what I was saying. It's one of my most. It was one of my favorite quotes from Owl. The place was University of Ife. Let me just say one short story before we go. I went to AU, right? 2003 or 2004. Chief Akinyele came on campus and he told us a story of something that happened during their own convocation in University of Ife. that thing has stayed with me since then. It must have been 2004, I think it was 2004. I remember that year because that was the year I published an electronic magazine in Ife. Anyway, long story short, I've been doing media for a long time, shall. Okay, so Akele now said that when they were graduating, the papa was available, was there, and he said something. Looked at them, graduates, you guys have come to university, you have studied everything. Then he said something that has stayed with me for 22 years. He said, now you have learned how to learn. This is a conversation I'm going to have when we go to those universities. Now you have learned how to learn. And I said that to say that it doesn't matter what you studied in school. The wisdom in what Awo said in the 1960s, first convocation of University of Ife, was that whatever you have studied, is not the issue. Is that you've been equipped with the tools you require to be able to learn. So if you study Yoruba, it doesn't mean that you cannot learn math or even become a medical doctor. So what what he wanted Ife to do, which I believe Ife did for someone like me, was to, and I think that's what all universities should do, not just Ife, to equip people with what they require to be able to do stuff. I said all of that to say that when you have conversations like this, people get educated, and they now, regardless of what they studied in school, they are now equipped with what they require to be able to learn what to do when they get to a position of authority. So that when you begin to have a new set of governors and chairmen and local government chairmen and councillors and stuff, there'll be people that think like us. We'll not have to be doing sessions and shouting, oh, the Igbo cannot take over Lagos. They will just shut you down. You will have less Yoruba bots. You will have more sensible people. We don't have to all support the same candidate, but they are able to talk rationally, and they're able to have conversations from a place of knowledge, not because they are following a herd. And they can start doing that in their teens and in their 20s, right? And that's what I'm saying all of that to tell you why we're going on this why we're starting this project, 2 summits. So again, 9 p.m. you see it will be live on Radio Me Global on Telegram. Please click on any one that you're interested in and support what we're doing. Also recommend it to other people. You can copy the link. It's Google Forms, right? So you can copy the link and send it to others. But the sponsorship thing, I will not put it out, because I will put out something about it, but maybe not the entire document. But if let's say you need it, or you want to, what's the word now, or you have somebody you think that we can reach out to with the brochure, please send me a message on Telegram at Busui Oris, because you cannot tell sponsors to come and fill form now. They want to, because givers they are part of it. Sponsors are usually outsiders, right? So givers, we can tell those ones, and we can have conversations. All of this to arrange you to say that if you need me to explain anything, or you think we can talk to organizations or individuals, please reach out to me on Telegram at Busui Oris. Your help will be greatly appreciated, because we need to do all this together. Again, remember, it's going to be every month, and we're going to bombard everywhere with this gospel with love, but we're going to be knowledgeable together. We'll build a better Yoruba land and a better Nigeria and a great Africa. Thank you very much for listening to that. So this is the end of this week's session. We'll be here again on Monday at 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. In case you're joining us for the first time, we do have these sessions every weekday, 4 p.m. That's Mondays to Fridays, 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. So we will be here again on Monday. I would love to host you. And again, just one more time, 9 p.m. t.me/Radio Global on Telegram. Please go there and fill whatever form you like, particularly whether it's volunteer or volunteer. What's the other one? Partners or givers, sponsors and hosts. Thank you very, very much. We're going to have our anthems now, and then we will call it a day. All right, so please, let's listen to the Nigerian anthem. Listen and be blessed.
Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Though tribe and tongue may differ,
Àwa ni ìmọ́lẹ̀ ògo adúláwọ̀, ìmọ́lẹ̀ wo ni wọ́kùn lágbára Ọlọ́run. Ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ò ní bàjẹ́ o, Nàìjíríà náà ò ní dàrú. Ilé ìwọ náà ò ní bàjẹ́, gbogbo nǹkan tábàtà wọlé máa yọrí sí rẹ̀ ní lágbára Ọlọ́run. And thank you very much for being part of today's session, for being part of this week's session. Okay, thank you so much for your support and thanks for your participation. I'll be here again on Monday at 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. So please join us then, and also remember to check out Redomi Global on Telegram and support to summit that we're about to begin in September. Thank you very much. Do have a lovely evening, and I'll see you. Lovely weekend because it's Friday after all. Thank God it's Friday. All right, so have a beautiful weekend. I'll see you again on Monday at 4 p.m. Ife time, West African time. God bless you. Ẹ ṣeun, ó dàárọ̀.